What you doing? I'm your otakutainer for this Otakutainment reviews. I'm talking about Ichi the Witch by Osamu Nishi with art by Shiro Usazaki. This is the second hunt, Uroro Majik. It came out on September 15th, 2024 and it's 27 pages, which it seems short to me, but it's actually a couple pages longer than normal second chapters for Weekly Shonen Jump. Quick, non-spoiler overview of this. Desscaras is holding Ichi in a cage, pretty much just explaining the unique situation Ichi is in. The chapter is mostly just a discussion between them on Uroro and how that magic works, a bit more on magic and witches in general, and then what Ichi will need to do next. I like that I didn't take this predicted path I had for my last one, which was pretty much just go before the leader of witches, get tested, stuff like that. I'm also glad I didn't go in a school path, which I also saw someone mention that it could be a possibility. I'm glad I didn't go that way. Yeah, the kind of pupil-mentor kind of relationship is done quite a bit, but it's not overdone yet, so I'm okay with it. And let's get in those details. I'm still really liking the art style, especially the coloring for the title page. And throughout, there's still those silly moment art styles, which is still kind of weird, but it gets consistent enough that it almost becomes a little charming. And now this chapter starts with a kind of shift in art style where it's like a storybook telling, because it opens with desscaras' perspective, just quickly retelling literally like 2 pages of what happened last chapter. Don't know if it's necessary, but it's desscaras, going over the events, kind of like a wrapping your head around it kind of moment, talking to Ichi. But it really makes desscaras seem like this powerful, amazing lead fighting Uroro that some dumb, random Ichi came and stole the spotlight from. But yeah, now we see Ichi in a cage while desscaras is telling this little story. They're floating above this path of destruction Ichi made at the end of the last chapter, which is kind of the reason Ichi is being kept in a cage for now. So we learn Uroro has a scientific name, the Ultra Amplification Majik. Don't know why there needs to be a scientific name. I feel like it's the magic from Uroro has a specific power to it. It doesn't really seem like science to me, so I don't know the scientific name would be the right term to use for it, but I don't know. Apparently they spent the last 1,000 years trying to catch this. Maybe science was part of it at some point, because I'll get to it in a minute. First, this Ultra Amplification Magic takes any magical effect and amplifies it to a maximum degree. All the other magics, their magic that comes from it makes sense. Water magic, use water, wind. Of course, we haven't seen a bunch, but from what it's presented so far, it kind of seems like that would be the case. I don't really see how, the whole thing in the first chapter was Uroro was the male Majik, the king Majik. What does that have to do with amplification? Is there some kind of sexist agenda going on with this? I don't know. I don't want to get into all that because that's bullshit stuff to begin with. But the other thing is, like I was getting to after this 1,000 years of trying to catch it, is how did they learn what this magic does if nobody ever caught it? Maybe that's where the science comes in, because that part doesn't really make any sense. So yeah, the other part of this Ultra Amplification Majik is there's no training required. Just say the chant properly. It doesn't even need it's not that hard to say. Ichi pretty much just says it like, oh, I think you said something like this. That doesn't seem like it's that hard to say the chant. But on the downside, it does knock out Ichi for 3 days. Kind of like a more versatile with a worse drawback of Megumin. But desscaras tried slapping some loud spells, a revivification spell that ended up only making the plants around Ichi perk up. So yeah, I guess there's not much you can do during those 3 days. It just has to happen. So now after this, Ichi has some options, which are either to join desscaras as a companion or a servant, or run from the whole world trying to catch Ichi, mainly to use like a guinea pig for experiments, because Uroro is a Majik. Majiks are living magic. So even though Ichi has this magic in him, that means Uroro is still living inside Ichi now. And now people are going to want to get Uroro out, I guess. Experiment to some capacity, not a lot of details there on what that could mean, but also it makes sense. And then with perfect timing, we get the tiny little shadow Uroro pops up on one of Ichi's shoulders, like some little shoulder devil, and immediately Ichi tries to just cut off Uroro's head. Probably what got Uroro, but Uroro's, I guess, a part of Ichi now, so you can't really do much about it. I guess Uroro's not really there, even though desscaras does see. But yeah, Uroro wants Ichi to run and die, because in order to be released, Ichi needs to die. That's the thing with all magic, because Uroro is upset that witches are hunting and capturing Majik. But the reason witches are doing it is because Majik, like Uroro, are causing destruction and all kinds of harm to humans. But Majik were there first, so like, whose fault is it really? Now we also learned just a little bit more specifics that there are 3,185 confirmed Majik, and of those 402 have been captured, but there could still be countless more hiding in all kinds of stuff. Oceans, volcanoes, they could be hunted from anywhere. And desscaras knows Ichi is a hunter just from seeing the house and lifestyle. So this gets Ichi excited and agrees to hunt Majik with desscaras. So after all that we learned, Ichi still has one thing left to do in this chapter, which is to get that revive chant I mentioned earlier from desscaras called Parthian. Goes witch mode, jumps off this floating platform, and uses Parthian on that path of destruction caused last chapter, and it pretty much regrows the entire forest, even bigger, not confirmed, but we can assume because it's a pretty sight to see. Then, of course, Ichi falls asleep. Along with Uroro. You can see just, that little shoulder sleeping Uroro. But, yeah, when I think about it, this falling asleep is kind of matching up with how we saw Uroro in the first chapter before getting captured, just sleep in the forest. So, at least that matches up. And it took me until the very end to really realize it and to see the sleeping together Ichi and Uroro. And then we end this chapter with monegold fussing at desscaras through a mirror, confused as everyone is probably about what is going on, and I'm sure we'll officially meet monegold next chapter because we're only really seeing glimpses so far. So yeah, this chapter is mainly just a lot of talking, a lot of silly humor, really subtle, kind of, it's obvious if you're paying attention, but if you're kind of just reading through it, it could seem subtle and just kind of in the background thing. I love it. It's great. Yeah, the art's kind of weird about it, but it's getting nice as you get used to it. But yeah, it also gives you a lot to think about. It feels like it's mainly just talking. It goes by quick. It doesn't seem like a lot happens, but I had plenty to say about it in the end, even though I didn't think I would. And then it leaves us with, at least me, with the biggest question is, Ichi's going to go hunt Majik now. Is Ichi going to be able to use the magic from these Majik or only be stuck with Uroro? I hope so, because that would mean Ichi would have to rely on other people to do most of the fighting. And yeah, I like side characters or characters that aren't the main protagonists of a series. Those are usually, my favorite comes from at least one of them. But also, it's kind of a little lame for a protagonist if it's like, oh, I can only do one thing every 3 days. It'd be hard to tell a story like that, but it could also be an interesting way to try to tell a story. I don't know. First 2 chapters so far, I'm really liking, so I'm expecting even more unique things. I'm sure the more tropey things are going to pop up soon. I hope not, because I like where it's going. I hope it keeps going how it's already been going, rambling. So yeah, last thing I always talk about, the chapter title is simple. They're talking about Uroro's magic and just meeting the little tiny Uroro. It's really Uroro-centric. So, of course, makes sense that that's the title chapter. Not much else I need to say about it. But that is going to be it for me talking and rambling on about the second hunt of Ichi the Witch by Osamu Nishi and Shiro Usazaki. If you want to talk more about it, go ahead, find me, leave comments, all that stuff. I'll be glad to talk about it. I want to do a weekly series on this and follow it because it really feels like it could be something big. It's so unique that I'm worried that it won't last because unfortunately that's how it goes. And I'm just so curious about it, so I hope it lasts. But I need people to talk about it more if that's going to be the case. And I have been seeing people talk about it, and it's great that it is, because it gives me hope. But talk about it with me, because that's what I want to do. So before I go, I want to thank my Ko-fi members, Vix Lab and Julio Vasquez. If you also want to help support me on Ko-fi, feel free to. You don't have to, but I appreciate either way. But that is it for me. I've been your otakutainer, the theacstories. This has been Otakutainment Reviews. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye.